All
Got it.
right. Hello, and welcome back to another fun-filled episode of the Hammercast. I'm your host, Alex, the Hebrew Hammer Salkin, and joining me, barely able to contain his laughter, is
Yep.
Geoff Neupert, back again. I think this is round three. I think this is your
I think
third,
this is round three. Yeah. Well,
third.
we make it to 12. That's the answer. That's
Yes.
the question, I should say, not the answer. We need to
Yeah.
answer the question.
Yeah. Well, no, we'll
Maybe, or
definitely.
maybe not.
Yeah. Well, there a lot of things remain to be seen, as we were
That's right.
discussing just prior to this call.
That's
And
exactly.
but one thing I can tell you for absolutely certain, dear listeners, is that you're in for an excellent conversation. And Geoff even complimented me on some of the questions and topics that I'd sent in earlier, which means I know for a fact that this is going to be quite good. I've been honing my question asking skills, so buckle up if you're in the car. That is good advice, regardless,
Yeah.
and get ready. And by the way, before I forget, for anybody who's new to the show and has not yet experienced the magic of my 9 minute kettlebell and bodyweight challenge, it is my free kettlebell and bodyweight challenge. You go to 9minutechallenge.com, get your own copy. I designed it so that it can be done in conjunction with pretty much any other program because the movements in there are full body, gait pattern focused movements like crawling, loaded carries, the kind of stuff that you're not training or neglecting and badly in need of improving, and will probably have a nice impact and carry over into your other training as well. So 9minutechallenge.com, and it is yours for free. And so now, without further ado, Captain Complex, welcome back.
Hey, good to see you. Thanks for having me on. Great to be here. And I just want to get your thought on this. I'm thinking about coming up with this concept. Give me your thoughts. It's called the 8 minute challenge, and I think it might have some appeal.
You
Let me know.
know, I I'm not so sure you can really get the hamster running on the wheel in just 8 minutes. I think it's that 9 minutes is really the
That's the mark, right?
that is the mark. But
Three threes is better than two fours or four twos. Is that it?
test it out. Prove me wrong. But
Yeah,
yeah, if you did come out with that, I would test it myself. But I would let you know. I would say, hey, my heart rate was higher with that one extra minute, so
that's
you
right. Right.
gotta
It's kind
amp
of like
things up.
something about Mary, wasn't it? It's like 8 minute abs. Was
Yeah, it was
it?
like
Was it
seven.
7 minute abs?
And then,
Right.
oh God, and the guy freaked out. Yeah. I look back at these movies that we grew up with, and it's like there was something magical about, I think, the from the early 2000s and before. There was something, it was like not everybody could be a celebrity. It was, whereas now you've got people who are inexplicably famous from social media,
Hmm.
and they get just as much airtime. I mean, Kim Kardashian, perfect example. I mean, she did a couple of other things to make herself famous, I suppose, but the point is that, like, you'd watch these big Hollywood movies that was like they had it down to a science exactly how to make things memorable and hilarious. Ace Ventura, Dumb and Dumber, Tommy
Yeah.
Boy.
Ace Ventura. I watched that within the last 6 months, and I forgot how funny that was. My wife and I watched it. We watched it when it first came out, right? Right
Yeah,
around the time it first came out, and we were just laughing like a couple of kids, right? It was that funny. I
yeah.
mean, there are definitely some questionable parts, but you know, all in all, it's just I mean, you're right, man. That type of humor, it's been canceled, my friend.
It has. I think it's coming back. I don't know if you've watched any of the comedy from Shane Gillis. He's really funny. He's kind of a throwback to that. And it's not like he's trying to make a statement. He's just going up and saying things that are funny. And he's from, oddly enough, as it turns out, some of my friends knew him because they were friends with his sister. So this was in Pennsylvania. My friend Sam Sichter, who's been a guest on the show, uh, runs a gym out in Exton, Pennsylvania, the Dragon Gym. And last time I was in Pennsylvania, I was telling him, like, oh my gosh, I've been watching this Shane Gillis guy. The dude is hilarious. He's like, oh, we know Shane. Like, he and his wife, no, they used to see him at like local improv places. And if you see his humor, I think you'll be like, okay, this is kind of like
Shane Gillis.
Shane Gillis. Yeah, Gillis.
I'll check it out.
He's so funny. And it's like, it doesn't really feel like he's parsing his words or trying to, hold back or whatever, but he's also not like trying to push the envelope. It's kind of like effortlessly funny. And it's a
Gotcha.
lot of the stuff that he's made the connections that you didn't think about. And you're like, so he's not like trying to force, connections to make things funny. Yeah, he's brilliant. He's super funny. Uh, Plenty inappropriate, so definitely don't listen while the kids are around. But yeah, I
Gotcha.
think
That's
I
good to
think you'll
know.
appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always like to give that warning. You know, normally, for instance, if I have somebody on my show who is a real swear bear, I'll always give the, you know, the hey, this is a not safe for kids conversation. Maybe put this in the naughty file to listen to later.
A swear bear as opposed to the pre-2000s Care Bear. It's like exactly the opposite. Yeah.
Exactly. And now that kids are swearing younger and younger, I feel like we got to connect that, you know, the Care Bear, the cute and cuddly thing to, you know, kids now swearing on camera and going viral for it. So, yeah, we're living in interesting times. But the comedy, the movies pre I would say 2000 and before, like I said, like that was the golden era. Like we're really peaked, I think, with cinema. And
Hmm. Pre-kettlebell renaissance. I hope there's no connection.
I was just going to say, I hope this is a correlation and not a causation sort
That's
of thing.
right. That's right. I'm sure it is.
Yes. You know, Pavel's a very serious guy, so maybe we did usher in an age of, you know, more
I'm
serious.
sure there's no connection whatsoever.
I hope not. And Pavel, if you're listening, I'm not really connecting you. I don't want to get a 100 swing penalty because I know that could be right around the corner at any time. So, well, on the topic of kettlebells, you know, I followed your work for a long time. I get your daily emails and I always read them with great enthusiasm. And, you know, one thing in particular that prompted this conversation was something that you had written about, in particular, I think it was maybe in December, something like that. And it was about, um, you know, basically a lot of us gain a lot of weight as we get older, and some of it
Yeah.
is good weight. You know, sometimes people are really focused on putting on muscle, but you know, probably in the majority of cases, it's really not that they're putting on a lot of muscle. It's they're putting on a lot of fluff, you know, or on the midsection and other areas. And
Perpetual bulk. Yeah.
exactly, they're on a perma bulk
Perpetual
program.
bulk.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm what I want to know in particular is because I don't really do much of anything with fat loss with my people. I always send them elsewhere if they have questions about that. But what are some of the biggest myths and misconceptions that adults have about eating, their metabolism, what it takes to get lean and fit as they age, things like that? Because it seems like everybody's still trying to train the way they did when they were 20. And
Hmm.
then they, you know, of course, immediately hit roadblocks and they get frustrated and it's like a vicious
Sure.
cycle.
Well, it's funny. I used to write a lot about fat loss back around 2010 to about 2016 or so. And it was always couched in like getting stronger.
Hmm.
Right. So, and then probably about 2019, 2020, I didn't want to touch the subject, man. It was almost like the third rail of fitness. And then it's funny because in the last probably 6 months or so, it's really struck a chord or a nerve with me. And I'm not even sure why. I just felt like it was it's time to probably talk about this again. And maybe it was because I saw some statistics, right? Some health statistics. What is it in America right now? I believe that more than 67% of the population is categorized as either overweight or obese. And when I was a kid, it was less than one third. It was probably about 25%, right?
Hmm.
If that, probably about 20%, excuse me, because I think the most recent stats that I'd seen showed that in the last 40 years or so, 45 years, that number has increased by about 40%. So, I mean, that's just insane if you ask me.
Yeah.
Why is that happening? Well, there's probably a ton of different reasons, right? But regardless, it is happening. And, I write mostly to men, and I have some women on my list who tolerate like the way I write because I guess they click with the way I write to men. And but the reason that's important is because according to the most recent NIH figures that I saw, 71% of American men fall into that category, right? So now the bell curve is you're either overweight or obese, right? And so the 15% on the left side of the bell curve is you're lean and in shape. And the 15% on the right side of the bell curve is you are morbidly obese and you have a TV special about you, right? On one of those weird cable TV stations. You know what I'm saying?
That's enough of a sizable percentage where statistically there are probably multiple TV shows like that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, so, and the reality is, Alex, so what we are facing now in America is the epidemic of average. So
Yeah.
the average American man is either overweight or obese. And the most recent statistics that I saw showed that the needle has now moved in favor of the obese versus the overweight, right? So in that 71% of men, more are obese than overweight. So this is excuse me, like a little itch there. This is literally like it's a health epidemic, right? And I think there's so much confusion around what's going on with nutrition and exercise that people are just confused, and they failed so many times in the past. They've probably just thrown up their hands and like, this is the black box. I can't figure out how to use it. And so I'm not even going to try because I failed so much in the past, right? Like I tried the goji berry or the acai berry or the raspberry ketones, or I sat through that. I don't know if you've seen this. I do some research on this because it's just fascinating.
Mhm.
The latest trend as of about a year ago, I haven't looked in the last 6 months or so, but the latest trend in selling fat loss products online was like some kind of soap opera story, like you'd hear the cell phone dial like, oh my God, 911, it's Billy or it's Susie. She fell down the stairs and I think she's having a heart attack. Right. And they all start from that. And then there's this long melodramatic thing. And this guy went on this trek and he, to find out the cure to his wife's overweight, panic, anxiety ridden, whatever. And it sounds like I'm making fun of it. And I kind of am, but these are all true. Like you can go watch it.
Yeah.
And I'm involved in like some marketing circles and they teach you how to write this stuff.
Mhm.
And it's borderline criminal, right? And it all comes down to this 5-minute bedtime ritual or this, and then 5 minutes is too long, right? So then they cut it down to like 90 seconds. And then it's, if you can do this 30-second. And so people get sucked into this, watching this hour-long VSL to learn how you take 3 pills. And these 3 pills are magically supposed to, right, get rid of 40 pounds overnight. And
Yeah.
so people are just, they're tired of that, right? And it doesn't work. And they're tired of spending their money. And so everything is a black box. And I think that most people have just given up. I don't know. I mean, does that sound right to you?
Unfortunately, it does. I have um the experience every once in a while of talking to somebody who is very clearly like completely out of the loop in the fitness world. And I think those are the most valuable conversations you can have because you really get to understand your market better. And
Yeah.
it sounds like I'm saying it from a research standpoint, but the fact is, you and I are both in this to help people. And
Right.
this is the reason, like you mentioned, in 2019, you kind of, or lately, in any case, you started to kind of shift back to talking about fat loss and its importance because, like it or not, you can talk about healthy at any size, but that's like saying wealthy at any income bracket. It's a complete misnomer. You there are there are some people who are overweight and not yet sick, but it's not yet sick. So
Right.
statistically, they're in a much worse position. And I think the problem, you nailed it, is that there's so much information out there that people are confused by. People, to some degree, I think the people themselves are somewhat to blame because realistically, they know what the answers are. It's eat right and exercise, take care of yourself. But people really want to hold out hope that maybe there is a pill that I can take.
Magic pill, magic bullet. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But it's marketing. I mean, it really is.
Mhm.
Let's think about this logically, right? If this, if marketing, the latest, greatest thing was the answer, then why, as the weight loss industry continues to make more and more every year,
Mhm.
I think 2020 was the only year, or 2019, 2020, the year of the, I don't think we can say it. Can we say
Yeah.
it now? I mean, are we
Let's
past it?
let's not risk it. I don't want this to
It's not,
get.
we don't want to get this thing banned, right?
I
The year
told
of the,
everyone this is a child-friendly thing.
that's
Yes.
right,
So
right?
yeah.
Apart from that particular year, the weight loss industry, as we know it, continues to make billions and billions of dollars, and it keeps going
Mhm.
up and up and up and up and up and up. And yet America, and actually the rest of the world, continues to get fatter. I think the only place that may be on par with America as far as obesity and being overweight is Australia. Europe
Mhm.
is close behind. It's about 50% now. I
Wow.
mean, it's just insane. And the simplest thing um, that people can do is just wrap their mind around the concept of eating less, right? At the end of the day, I say this to all my clients, at the end of the day, calories do matter. And if you
Yeah.
don't believe me, go take a look at pictures of starving children in Africa and Holocaust survivors of World War II when they found the concentration camps, right?
Yeah. They weren't in starvation mode, holding on to a bunch of fat.
That's exactly right. Does starvation mode exist? Some people can argue that it is. There's I can't remember the term. There's a term where your body down regulates its metabolism, right, in order to preserve calories. And that happens to extremely morbidly obese people who lose hundreds of pounds, right? In some cases, adaptive thermogenesis, it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But we're not talking about those people, right? We're just talking about the average person now who's American or maybe Australian or European, right? Who's overweight, obese, and wants to lose some weight. So the simplest way is to eat less. And we've all heard that, but most people don't know what it means, right? And the simplest but hardest way to do that, but the most valuable way to do that, I found, is to actually track your calories, right? Nobody wants to do that because it's a pain in the butt, and I've got to enter all this stuff into my apps. But Peter Drucker, the management guru, he's the father of modern management. He's 100% correct. What gets measured gets managed.
Yep.
Right. So if you've never obsessively tracked your calories for a 1 to 2 week period, I recommend all my new clients do it for 2 weeks. Then you don't have a baseline. You don't know how many calories you're eating. And so you don't know what eat less really is.
Yeah.
Right. So you consider that the average American now eats 3,600 calories a day. Okay. And according to it's either I think it's the USDA says that the average American needs to eat, the average American female needs to eat 2,000 calories a day, and the average American male needs 2,500 calories a day. Well, that means that your average American female is eating 1,600 calories more than she needs to,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the average American male is eating 1,100 calories more than he needs to. So on average, 3,500 calories is a pound, right? You're putting on how many pounds per month?
Quite a few.
Quite a few, right? So I always say just get an app, get a tracker, and a lot of these apps are so convenient now.
Mm-hmm.
They've got barcode scanners on there. So I use an app called Chronometer, and you just point it at the back of your nutrition facts label on top that comes on every food. Every package of food you buy in the United States has a nutrition facts label, and the chronometer you can suck it in, right? You just hit the barcode and it sucks in what you eat, and you can just guesstimate. It's at least it's a start.
Yeah.
Do that for 2 weeks, and then you have a baseline. Hey, no wonder my pants aren't fitting well because I'm eating 5,000 calories a day, right? Like,
Yeah.
so that's the best place to start. And I've talked a lot in the past about hormones and hormonal profiles and balancing out cortisol and stress hormones and anabolic hormones and hunger hormones, and all those things are true, right? But we still need to get those calories down. And a lot of people are going to give me the yeah buts. Yeah, but I tried that in the past and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I don't. Do you remember? I guess it was about 10. It was about 15 years ago now, right? That the Kansas State nutrition professor
Who
who went
only
on the
ate
Twinkie
Twinkies?
diet.
Yeah.
Twinkie diet. So what most people don't know is he ate just under 1,800 calories a day. Right now, remember, the average American male needs 2,500, and he had like a can of vegetables and a multivitamin. In 10 weeks, just did this for 10 weeks. Guess how much weight he lost?
It was at least double digits, as I recall.
Yeah, 27 pounds,
Wow.
right? And his blood profile is improved eating Twinkies. So you can even eat junk food as long as you pull the calories down. Now, I don't recommend doing that, and neither did he, right? But it proves the point that you're probably not in starvation mode, and you may be eating less, but you're still not eating less than your body needs.
Yeah.
Right? And we can talk about hunger and getting hungry and all that stuff if we need to. But I mean, the fact of the matter is, if you're hungry, so what? Like, you're not going to die, right? You're not hungry like that kid on World Vision, right? The little African kid who's sitting there with a bloated stomach and you can see all his bones. You're not that hungry.
Yeah. That's the problem, is that I think people have a real lack of perspective. People will say stuff like, they'll throw out jargon and slang terms that are industry specific, let's say. And
Yeah.
I think, um, you know, it's kind of like, I think this is a saying, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing because people get a little bit and then they think, I mean, they went from basically zero to something. So now they feel like they have a much clearer vision than everybody else who still knows zero. But the fact is that
Right.
they're still way closer to zero than most of the people who do this for a living. And, having not ever really experienced what it means to lose weight, meaning they might remember what it was like to weigh less when they were younger, more
Right.
physically active and stuff like that. They don't really have any understanding of how to get back to that. So if they talk about, hormones, hormonal profiles, and you know hormone optimization and all of these other things, which, as you pointed out, certainly have value, in some
And they
sense,
do matter to a certain extent, but
of course.
the easiest way to optimize those hormone profiles for many people is just to actually eat less.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's similar to, like, if you were to talk about, I remember, my coach, Scott Stevens, back in the day, he and I got a request to go to a local, like, boot camp place where they were starting to institute kettlebell training because this was still sort of like the fitness industry was just sort of kind of starting to cotton on to the idea of kettlebell training. And they told him specifically that they wanted to learn the clean and jerk and the snatch. Now, they didn't know how to deadlift, how to swing, how to do a squat. So, it's like they had such limited knowledge and limited understanding, but the first thing they wanted to go to was the most advanced possible
Right.
movements. And I think in some ways, the whole hormone optimization approach is very similar because uh, it's like probably my favorite story ever to describe like how to do like high level cool stuff, which I think the hormone optimization side of the equation certainly is. And it's valuable once you've got, like you pointed out, the ability to start measuring, start managing, and start making progress. Well, there's a story about a guy, uh, Kevin Trudeau, no relation to Justin Trudeau, as far as I know, just the last name. But he, when he was a kid, he went, yeah,
Love it. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. When he was
Yeah.
a kid, he went to a karate studio, and he told the karate master, he was like, or kung fu, I think it was karate, but he said like, I want to learn how to do like cool advanced stuff. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, like advanced kind of stuff. And he goes, oh, like this. And he brought him over to the side of the room where there was a candle, and he punched so fast right next to it that the wind from his hand blew this candle out without touching it. And he said, yeah, I want to learn that. He said, okay, but first I have to teach you how to punch. And people don't want to learn how to punch. They want to do the cool and flashy stuff. And I think because we're not really in, this is a Tony Robbins quote, we're not really in the information age anymore. We're in the entertainment age. And
Yeah.
people want everything that they do outside of their work and their regular responsibilities to be entertaining. People don't really want to do things that are necessarily good for them if they're not also like
Fun.
enjoying, like it just having a blast at the same time. And they have a hard time distinguishing between enjoying the process and enjoying that path to mastery and improvement. And they mistake that for this need for, like real, we'll say like classically defined entertainment.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think we have mistaken discipline for fun as well, too,
Yeah.
right? I mean, the most successful people in the world in any endeavor are the most self-disciplined,
Yeah. I
right?
remember Dan John talking about, like some of his students, they'd be like, what does this, what muscle does this exercise work? And they'd be like, lift your hand over your head like you're holding a trophy. And they'd be like, that muscle, you
Yeah.
know? So
Yeah.
that's exactly it. And some people don't necessarily want to train to win trophies, but you're going to train for little wins along the way. So
Right.
you need to get into that mindset anyway.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Now, not everybody wants to, we're going to lose a lot of people on that tracking thing. They're like, I'm just not going to do that.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, that's fine. So what can you do instead? Right. Well, I got two simple things you can do. And the first one is you got to track something. Right.
Hmm.
So I always say, if you're going to track something, prioritize and track your protein. So that means protein like beef, steak, hamburgers.
No fish.
See where I'm going? See where I'm
Yes.
going?
I see.
Cheeseburgers, no, fish, turkey, bacon, pork,
You're
maybe
only
not.
going to lose about 1% of the audience with the bacon
Yeah, with the
pork.
bacon and the
Yeah.
pork, but you know what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
fish, meat, chicken, poultry, poultry's chicken, chickens, poultry. You get protein shakes, those types of things.
Yeah.
Prioritize those. If you're going to eat anything, eat those 3 to 4 times a day and build your meals around that.
Yeah.
And the reason you want to do that is twofold. One, protein is satiating. So you're not going to be that hungry compared to if you had like keto
Mm-hmm.
or high carb, right? A lot of people go on keto and they still get hungry, which is a shock to them because they were told they wouldn't be hungry. A lot of people do high carb and again, they're hungry, right? But the protein has a satiating effect. So what that means is you don't have the craving, you're not hungry. And speaking of cravings, it reduces your cravings for carbohydrates and fats.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good. You're not going to overeat on those things. Plus, we have to consider what's called the thermic effect of food, right? More sciencey gobbledygook, which basically just means that when your body digests protein, it costs more calories to digest it than it would digesting carbohydrates or fats. And it costs about 30% more calories. So you're actually going to burn some extra calories by prioritizing protein,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's the first thing. I mean, that's pretty easy. And the second thing is do a 24-hour fast, like once a week, right? Super simple. That's automatically going to cut. If the average American, let's just put this, let's run the numbers. If the average American is eating 3,600 calories a day, right? The average American has the potential to lose 1 pound of fat per week simply by fasting,
Mm-hmm.
right? Potential, right? So, I mean, that's pretty good. And as long as you don't gorge on the backside of the fast to
Yeah.
make up for what you didn't eat, you're now in a win column, speaking of small wins.
Yeah.
And, there's several other things that go with it. So not only are you reducing calories by fasting for 24 hours, you actually increase. We're now speaking in the King's English, right?
Yes,
Old
exactly.
King James.
I thought this was a Mike Tyson impression, perhaps.
That's right. Good old Iron Mike. Love that
Yeah.
guy. You're increasing your body's production of growth hormone, which then sends a signal to your body to increase fat burning, right? So we got decreased calories, increased fat burning, and then your body functions better through what's called autophagy, or some people say autophagy, which is basically your body's way of taking out the trash.
Mm-hmm.
So the things that are coming in, the calories that will come in, and the exercise you do to your body or for your body in the future will have more beneficial effects than if you didn't take the trash out, right?
Yeah.
So I think those are two really good starting points for people. And if those are the only two changes you made this year, by this time next year, you would notice a pretty significant difference in how you looked and felt.
Definitely. And, I think one of the things that's appealing about it too is that it is a meaningful step forward that is going to get them to see visible results. I think this is a sort of a thing where you have to track it too, whether it's, something like pick a particular article of clothing that
Right.
maybe fits you a little snugly and just
Not
see.
spandex.
Not
Yeah.
spandex ever, please. You got to earn the right to wear spandex. Yoga pants too, folks. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Okay, I don't know if that's spandex or not, but still.
It has spandex in it,
Oh,
right?
there you
We're
go.
talking about jeans and that sort of thing. Apparently, you can't buy jeans that don't have spandex in it anymore. Like all jeans are stretchy now, but
Yeah,
things that are kind of tight
yeah, yeah. Um, those
by
sorts.
accident, not on purpose. You know what
Correct.
I mean, right?
Yeah, exactly. If you buy skinny jeans, that's on you. So
Right.
just normal jeans, folks. Boot cut,
No pun
ideally.
intended. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And if you can look at that, maybe look at yourself in the mirror, weigh yourself once a week. And look in yourself in the mirror, take a picture as well,
Right.
because it's easier to see like as the weeks go on, like, hey, I haven't dropped 50 pounds, but I can definitely see I look a little leaner. Maybe there's 1 or 2 pounds down on the scale, but I look different and I feel different.
Right.
So all of these things matter. And I think this is just my impression, but and maybe I read Marty Gallagher say this. For some reason I'm associating him with this, but he said like, or wherever I receive this revelation from, be it Marty Gallagher or my own, observation. Um, if you eat like if you get in a hard workout, you get this rush of endorphins. You get like the sense of having accomplished something because there is a beginning and an end point,
Mhm.
and the way you feel at the end is different from how you felt at the beginning and during. It's like you kind of go through this little transformation, as it were, and so it sort of encourages you to want to do it again. But if you eat healthy, you eat like some salmon and some salad, a little bit of white rice, some avocado, you really don't feel much different. And so it's kind of like a leap of faith to eat better, because people some people eat, to kill their feelings or whatever, and they have certain comfort foods that they've gotten
Yeah,
used to, and
absolutely.
then it's all like, where is this really going? Is this going to make a big difference? Is it going to be worth the difference if it does get somewhere? But I think you're absolutely right. You have to start somewhere. You have to at least make some sort of a change. There are going to be people who are not interested in making any change at all. But I think the protein one is
Yeah, it's
the
fine.
one that makes the most sense, because it's like
Yeah.
normal people love protein. Honestly, like you eat more of it, and you're like, oh, that feels great.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Almost everybody I know, except vegans and vegetarians, feel good, after eating a big steak. And I really like vegans and vegetarians because they leave more steak for me. I mean, that's the way I
Right.
always look at it, right?
I was gonna say they're among the people who can't really be helped because they're just not gonna want to make any real changes. But what are they gonna do about it? Are they gonna fight me? Come on, they have no energy. Like either of us would be perfectly fine if they rose up in protest. No, but I think that's a very good point, and I think when people start to do that, they'll probably see more benefits in some sense than even if they exercise. Because a lot of people exercise, and you're like, I knew somebody who he would go work out, and he'd be like, I'm gonna earn my Burger King. It's like, dude, all you did was like take every benefit that you just got from your workout and like threw it in the fireplace, and there's a towering blaze, just like burning up everything you just did. Your basal metabolic rate is what's responsible for most of the calories you burn, not the, obviously there's an impact of the 45 minutes you spend, doing some productive training, but you're not burning nearly as many calories as you could fire down the gullet if you're not
Right.
careful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the exercise diet thing. I used to be an 80% diet guy, right? I mean, until recently. And now I've just thought like, what's the simplest? I mean, we're talking about diet. So I figure we might transition to exercise here. I don't know if this is biased research or not, but I've seen some research recently and I can't remember where it was, so I can't cite it. But basically they measured health indicators and health outcomes from um, three groups, right? Control group, um, four groups, excuse me, control group, exercise only group, diet only group, exercise and diet only group. And they
Mhm.
found for bang for the buck, the exercise only group had like a greater decrease in all-cause mortality. And they were shocked because they figured that the exercise plus diet group would be exponential or doubled, right? So
Mhm.
I think it was like 35% for the exercise diet group had a 35% decrease in all cause mortality. Shockingly, 21% in diet only, but for exercise and diet, it was like 42%, right?
Wow.
Or 41%. It was almost insignificant. Like you would expect it to be 35 plus 21 for the math geniuses here. What is that? 56%. But it was nowhere near that. And so for me, I go, all right, this is something I've been working on lately. Can we create, can we help people lose body fat and get healthier, right? Without having to diet? And the answer is yes, but it requires some effort.
Mhm.
So as long as you realize there's some effort and it's some intense effort
Yeah.
up front, it's not like I'm just going to go for a walk and everything's going to be okay. It's not that,
Yeah.
right? So I'm moving a lot towards that these days with the hopes of capturing those people, giving them small wins,
Mhm.
and then going, okay, now let's get the diet introduced, right?
Yeah.
Let's see what can happen, excuse me, if we introduce some protein. Let's see what happens if we can focus on protein only, right?
Mhm.
That's all you have to eat. Well, let's put that first. And then let's see what happens if you add in a 24-hour fast. And then suddenly now they're seeing success on both fronts in which they failed repeatedly
Mhm.
before, right?
Yeah.
So
I think those are great. And that really kind of follows up with my uh the next thing that I wanted to talk about is because a big problem, and I'm sure you see this a lot. I also kind of catch myself doing it a little bit, but usually not something super detrimental. It's just, it's minor stuff, but it can compound. It's that a lot of people have a hard time making any changes because the older they get, the more cemented they are into the way they've always done things. And when the years go by, it's just harder for people to change those habits. And I don't know that there's anything that's actually mentally or psychologically different other than it's very possible that it's all in their heads. I'm sure I'll get accused of gaslighting, but gaslighting's not real. You just made it up. No, I'm kidding. But I
excellent.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think some
Excellent.
people, I think
Well played.
Yeah. Yes, of course. I think some people they think about, okay, I've got this on my schedule. I gotta go to work, I gotta pick up the kids, I gotta do this and that. And so the idea of adding something in or changing something where there's some sort of comfort in having a routine, even if it's not ideal, it can be a little bit scary for people. And so what I like about what you're talking about is these are things where it's kind of like more than anything, in most cases, they're really just ramping up what they're doing. They're probably already eating protein, so just eat some more. Like, wow, what diet experts ever told me to eat more? It's usually just, cut things down until you have no energy. So I'll try that. And then they see some good results. They were like, well, what else can I do? Can I keep this gravy train going? And so I think that's I think that's key. You've got to find something that people don't mind making the change. And they're not like, oh, I've got to just keep doing this because it's the way that I've always done it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think we live in the tension of this is the way I've always done it, and these were the results I got when I did it that way,
Hmm.
versus I'm a different person now,
Yeah.
right? So what works for a 22-year-old won't always, more often than not, won't work for a 42-year-old,
Yeah.
right? Certainly not a 52-year-old, unless you got, unless you know how to train or you're being trained by somebody who knows how to train,
Yeah.
right? But certainly the opposite is true. What works for a 42 and 52-year-old will work for a 22-year-old. And I think one of the things that we face, especially, I can speak from guys. My wife was a college athlete, so I think I can speak for women who have that type of athletic background as well. Is we associate results with hard work and lots of hard work,
Hmm.
right? Maybe you were 18 and you read Arnold's Encyclopedia of a Bodybuilder and you trained 2 hours a day and you got some pretty good results. I mean, you didn't look like Arnold, but there's the association. If I train what Arnold says to train and I train the way he says to train it, and I basically do what Arnold did or what he tells me to do, then I'll look like Arnold, right? I don't have 2 hours to train 6 days a week like Arnold told me to do. Therefore, ah, you know, nothing that I'm going to be able to do is going to get me to look like Arnold because I'm not doing what Arnold said.
Yeah.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
So,
And I think that's a perfect example.
yeah. So, what we have to realize is that as we get older, and this was something that was lost on me when I was young, is um, one of the most significant training years of my life was 1996. March of 1996, I had I don't even know how to explain it. It was almost like a black swan event, but in reverse, right? Or like a white unicorn event, for lack of a better term. So I there was a 3.5 week period, about 3.5 week period, where I went from 10% body fat at 210 pounds. It was like 10.8 to 3.3% at 200 pounds.
Wow.
And yeah, it was absolutely amazing. And but there was a reason for that. Okay. And that was one, I wasn't married. Two, I had a sole focus because I wasn't married. I didn't have any kids that I was supporting, right? I had a sole focus of competing for weightlifting, and I could do whatever I wanted to do in order to do that thing for a short period of time, right? So I tracked all my calories. Tell me if that sounds familiar, right? I knew how much protein down to the gram I was eating, how much protein down to the how many carbohydrates, excuse me, down to the gram I was eating, how many fats I was eating down to the gram every day, tracked it religiously. We didn't have apps back then, right? So you wrote it in a little book with a pen that had spreadsheets in there. I did multi or polyphasic sleeping, right? So I slept twice a day
Wow.
for large chunks, like 5 hours one part of the day, 3 hours another part of the day. And I trained for 70 minutes a day, 6 days a week, right? I don't know too many people who can train that way, right? So you're
Yeah.
not going to get those types of results, but it did show me what was possible,
Hmm.
right? Fast forward 30 years later, almost 30 years later, am I ever going to set up my life to look like that again? Probably not, right? Maybe when the kids leave, might be able to do something like that. Probably not, though. And I don't want to do something when let's see, my kids are going to leave, my daughter's going to leave when I'm 60, right? I'm not really going to want to do something at 60 that I did at 23,
Yeah.
right? And so I had that experience. And then I started training with my coach, and then I could no longer train with that type of effort level and that type of focus because I had to get a real job. I couldn't just work part-time, right? I had to work full-time,
Hmm.
which meant I had to quit training locally and I had to travel into New York City. I had to get up at 5 a.m., right? And I wasn't getting home till 11 or so. And my coach, you know, he wrote a new training block for me, and it was 3 days a week. And I was like, Al, my weightlifting coach's name was Alfonso Duran. He was on the Cuban weightlifting team. He was trained by Coach Alexei Medvedev, excuse me, who's a world champion weightlifter and was also a world champion coach. So he was the coach of the Soviet weightlifting team when they were multi-time world champions.
Hmm.
So Alfonso was trained by that guy. And he said, I said, Al, I can train more than this. He goes, no, you don't understand. He said, you cannot train the way that you've read about training in the weightlifting materials from the Soviet Union. And he said, the reason you can't do that is because, and normal people can't do that, is because they have jobs, they have bills to pay, they have wives, they have kids, right? They have mortgages, they have car payments, they have all these external stressors, right? And that takes away from the recovery process.
Hmm.
And that explains why you can't train at 42, 52, 62. Maybe, 62, that's interesting, right? I got guys who are emailing me at like they're in their 60s and 70s, and they're seeing spectacular results from their training. And part of it, I think, is most of the life stressors are over, right? So
Yeah.
the building period of their life, the 40 years of building, that time is over, and they're starting to reap some of the fruits of their labors, right?
Hmm.
So life has slowed down. So I think it probably changes when you're in your 60s. I'll let you know when I get there. But the point is, and Alfonso knew this, and I'll just sidestep into this story about Alfonso. He was on the Cuban weightlifting team, which meant this. For 3 to 4 hours a day, he would go to the gym and train, and then he would go home and do whatever he wanted. At the end of the month, he'd go down to the manufacturing plant where he worked and he'd pick up a paycheck. And that was his life, right? None of us, I don't know anybody who has that type of life.
Hmm.
And he said that was the background upon which all those programs are built.
Hmm.
And so you cannot apply that programming to the American lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just too much, it's too hard, and you burn out too fast. And so that's why we just be foolish to do the Arnold 2 hours a day, 6 days a week that we did at 22 at 42,
Yeah.
right? Because it just won't work. It's too much for your body. And not only will you not get results, you'll get the opposite of results. You'll get negative results, right? You'll actually be hungrier. You'll be more tired. You'll be more sore. You'll eat more food. You'll be more grumpy, right? Your wife will be more pissed off at you because you're more of a jerk, right? Your kids won't want to spend any time with you, right? Because like you're just grumpy, tired, and hungry, and you can't get up off the floor because yesterday was leg day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
100%.
you do probably a third less and see, excuse me, two-thirds less, do a third of that type of workload and see phenomenal results at 42, 52 compared to 22. So those types of changes you can implement at this age, right?
Yeah.
Um, if you can get somebody to buy into that concept, then they can start implementing those changes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, one of the things that I found very interesting, I read about it. I similarly don't have any study to quote from, but I heard that metabolism doesn't actually decline much until we hit our mid 60s, I think. And most people complain about putting on weight far before that. And the problem is not that their metabolism is going down, it's that they're not moving as much. They're eating more than they used to. And so the one caveat might be that your recovery is just not as fast as it is when you're very young. Because when you're quite young, you've got just this like light speed recovery.
Right.
And so you have to consider all these other stressors, like you pointed out. Like I remember I attended a workshop that Dave Whitley was teaching earlier this year. It was the Old Time Strongman University event where we were tearing and stuff and bending things, and it was a ton of fun. But he mentioned that too. He said, you might be like ready, geared up to just do like absolutely awesome feat of strength, bend a, wrench or what have you, and then you get a call from your wife saying, "Oh, just wanted to let you know our son fell down and got hurt. He's okay, but he wanted me to call you just to let you know that he got hurt, but he's okay." Well, what he pointed out is like in your head, you're now stressed about that, and that can have a negative impact on the work that you're trying to do. And he was giving that as an example for just that one moment in time. But if you just spread that out over the course of not just a moment, but days, weeks, months, beyond, you have to keep this in mind for whatever hard work you hope to be able to do, because you're only going to have small windows of time where you can allow yourself to train in most cases, because you just don't have
Right.
the time to do it in other events. But beyond that, if you can't recover from the stress of training as well as the other stressors that you have in your life, like you pointed, you're going to be going backward and rather than forward.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And a lot of guys get injured in their classic is they get injured starting an exercise program,
Yeah.
right? After 10, 15, 20 years on the bench, because they're doing what they think they should be doing based on what they did in the past to achieve results. I mean,
Yeah.
you hear there are plenty of stories of guys who rupture their Achilles tendons doing box jumps, right? Things like that. Well, box jumps are great if you're an athlete and you've been training as an athlete for years. They're like the worst thing you can do if you're a desk jockey,
Yeah.
right? It's like, but we've been indoctrinated, like in order to lose weight, get in shape, whatever, I got to do these certain things, right? And the reality is what you got to do is find out what you can do and start there.
Yeah.
I always tell my peoples, I always tell
My peeps.
my peeps, I always tell people, just start with something, man, like
Yeah.
10 minutes. Can you, can you do 10 minutes a day? Yeah, I can do 10 minutes a day, but that's not enough. It doesn't matter. Just do 10 minutes, right? Do 10 minutes a day, 6 days a week, even 5 days a week. That's roughly an hour, 4 hours. I mean, that's way more than you have been doing. And that compounds. You build up your consistency muscle. And then sometimes, you know what? You're 10 minutes, the timer goes off, and you're like, wait, I'm having such a good time. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to do another 5 minutes or another 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. And before you know it, you get this momentum that's building up. Now I've gone from 10 minutes to 15 minutes to 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week, which by the way that's a wonderful training plan that will build your consistency muscle and get you some really good results. Just doing something as simple as 20 minutes, 5 days a week, take the
Definitely.
weekends off. I mean, that's huge.
Big time.
It's a good win.
Yeah, and I
So
try to tell people in a case like that, like your commitment is to do X number of minutes per day, but you can have a goal to do more. But if you don't reach the goal, as long as you reach the commitment, which is
yeah,
something smaller, like five,
yeah,
10 minutes, 9 minutes, and to throw back to what I mentioned earlier,
yeah.
all those things are it's great. And if you're currently doing zero, literally anything is a bigger number than zero.
I mean, think about that. Ten minutes is a 10 times increase
Yeah,
over zero.
yeah,
It's huge.
yeah,
10x. I'm 10xing my exercise schedule.
yeah. My exercise schedule goes to 11, however.
I
So
mean, okay, yeah.
yeah, there we go.
Why? Because it's
Why don't you just make 10?
more,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
more than 10.
yeah. Why don't you just make 10 even louder? Because
Yeah.
this one goes to 11. Yeah, exactly. I hope there are some Spinal Tap fans listening to this.
Yeah.
If not, go look it up. Well, that brings us to the next point is you've become a very big proponent of kettlebells for the last probably 20 years. And one of the things that you mentioned too, relative to, let's say, barbell training, kettlebell is not only is it more approachable and is it easier for people to be able to do without, let's say, some of the horrendous injuries that the barbell has been known to bequeath upon people. Um, and you have a new program out that has been making waves and people really are enjoying it. It's Kettlebell Maximorum.
Mhm.
And, for people who are, I would say, probably going to need to have a pretty strong base of single kettlebell skills and some sort of familiarity with the double kettlebell skills. But for people who are ambitious and short on time, but
Mhm.
have these prerequisites in place, what are some of the big benefits? Why did you design Kettlebell Maximorum specifically? What did you hope for it to be able to help people to achieve that those at that level might not be able to achieve with other programs?
Wow, that's a lot. So the premise behind Kettlebell Maximorum is I really got tired of people asking me, can I add this, this, that, this, and the next thing in with this program, that program, or the other program,
Yeah,
right? So like you can, but it defeats the whole point of the program,
yeah,
right? Like so that's the background. And I said, okay, so if I came up with a program that would be the ultimate kettlebell program, right? That would scratch everybody's itch. What would it look like? And so then and particularly, I mean, my audience is primarily guys over 35, 45, right? That age group. So what itch would it scratch of theirs? And so I came up with that simply by looking at what are the most beneficial exercises, beneficial from a cost, energy cost, injury cost ratio, like time efficiency ratio, what gives you the biggest bang for your buck for guys our age. So I narrowed it down to essentially 3, right? It's the double kettlebell clean and press, double kettlebell front squat, and the single kettlebell snatch.
Mm-hmm.
And so most of my programs are 3 days a week, which is hilarious because everybody wants to add something, right? Like, well, can I train like 17 times a week using this program? And if so, how can I do it? And how would I add in wrist curls
Yeah.
and whatever? I'm exaggerating a little bit.
Yeah.
So what I did is I baked this program around what are the biomotor abilities that have the greatest impact on, well, everything: longevity, strength, fat loss, right? Being able to not only get lean, but stay lean. And knowing that a lot of my guys don't want to diet, right? Don't want to do the things that we are talking about earlier in this call. They don't want to track anything. Like, how can we get them to do what I call recomposition, or to experience what I call recomposition, which is the simultaneous shedding of fat, building muscle, gaining strength, and improving conditioning. Now, people used to argue with me and nitpick me to death and say, you can't do these at the same time, right? I'm talking about over the same period of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not in the very same instant, right? Right. So over the course of a program, how would you program this? And so this is programmed to get you strong, to build strength endurance, to make you more powerful or be able to do more work, and then and build power endurance, which is to be able to do more work for a longer period of time repeatedly without gassing out. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, because everybody wanted to do more than 3 days a week, this is a 4-day a week program, which is hilarious, right? Because a lot of people are like, I don't know if I can do 4 days a week. And wow, 4 days a week is really hard. Yes, that's why I recommend 3 days a week,
Yeah.
right? For most people. Okay. But if you need more or feel you want more, then you do 4 days a week. And so that's Maximorum. It's based on a 5-rep max of your clean and press. And then the front squats, double kettlebell front squats, have 3 different options. It's the average leg strength option, the stronger than average leg strength option, and then the strong leg option. And all those are based around the clean and press 5RM. And then it's based off a 10RM snatch.
Mm-hmm.
And guys are shocked because they download the program and they look ahead at the numbers and they get scared of the numbers that they're going to be doing. And they're like, I get emails all the time. I'm like, I don't know if I could do that. Like, just trust the process.
Yeah.
And people, I mean, they end up doing multiple sets with their 5RM and more reps per set with their 5RM and the clean and press
Yeah.
at the end of the 12 weeks. So it's a 2-phase, 6 weeks, 12-week program, right? And what makes it's very similar in its structure to some of my other programs like Kettlebell Burn Extreme or Kettlebell Burn, in the fact that I include like the optimum warm up. What else do we include? So the warm up includes general warm up and specific warm ups, right? The two are different, why the two are different, what to do, how to do it. It's got all the exercise descriptions and stuff put in there. It's got nutrition in there. We cover all the nutrition for guys who don't want to track. I tell you what to do instead.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you don't want to track, do this instead. And there are 3 different options, right? That's build muscle, which is basically recomposition. And then there's lose fat, right? Or burn fat, because I don't really like to lose anything. And then burn fat extremely quickly, right? Rapid fat loss. So those are the 3 options for the nutrition. And then I go really heavy into recovery and restoration techniques. So we include 6 different recovery and restoration techniques in there, and then how to program them in with the rest of your week. Because, I say you should only train 3 days a week. I'm a big believer in that, but it doesn't mean do nothing on your off days.
Sure.
Right. So I'm a big believer in you train hard 3 days a week. And then the other 3 days a week, you do things that empower your training. So you do restoration work, right? Mobility work, flexibility work, whatever you want to call it. Go for walks, those types of things that bring your stress levels down.
Mm-hmm.
So stay active. I'm a big believer in that. So that's That's essentially Maximorum in a nutshell.
Yeah, it sounds like it's kind of the ultimate double kettlebell program. It's got a focus on something for the upper body, something for the lower body, and something for the full body, like the kettlebell snatch. And
Yeah.
it sounds like it's tough enough where people aren't reaching out to be like, "Can I add this?" Because it's like do 1 week, and then you just ask if you really want to.
Nobody has asked to add anything to it that I recall. I have
You
not,
probably want to reduce stuff from it.
yeah, people are like, this is really hard. 4 days a week is really hard. Can I cut it to three? Yes, there's a 3 day a week option, which I include in the program and show you how to cycle it. So it'll be my math is terrible. It's either going to be a 16 week or an 18 week program if you do it 3 times a week.
Hmm.
Right. So, but there's a way to do it that way. The 4 day a week is better. And
Yeah.
people find they adapt to the 4 day a week program. So,
Yeah, that's part of it. I think with anything is that if you think I can't do 4 days a week, but you're going to commit to it, you'll figure out a way, and your body will adapt. Ultimately, like
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
if you're never really pushing, you don't have to push your limits that hard. But if you're never like nudging up against them, they're not going to move away from you.
And the reality is, Alex, they're not that long. I
Yeah,
mean, it's there are two 20-minute training sessions a week and two 30-minute training sessions a week, which fall right in the range of what I tell everybody anyway. Train 20 to 30 minutes at a clip.
yeah,
Right. So it's not like I'm saying, oh, there's this one's extra, like
yeah.
it's 60 minutes. Here's why. It's none of that. It falls totally in line with everything that I, encourage people to do.
Exactly. And if people want to follow you, they want to maybe learn more about Maximorum or some of the other programs that you have, where's a good place for them to do so?
I can just go to my website, chasingstrength.com, or you can find me on YouTube at Geoff Neupert, GeoffNeupert. Go in there. There's a ton of free videos. Just give you some ideas on how to train with kettlebells, do's, don'ts, rights, wrongs, those sorts of things.
I'll be sure to put both of those links into the description. I think that everybody here would make a good decision if they would go and follow you because I've been on your email list for a very long time. I've followed you on Chasing Strength, read your blogs, watched your videos religiously. Christmas, Easter, Rosh Hashanah, that sort of a thing. I'm kidding. But I highly recommend it. I've always learned a great deal from you. And I think you have a unique perspective, too, as somebody who was a high level athlete as a youth and has not left his best days behind them, but is actually making it a point to make your future even stronger. I think it's very, very common. We see people excel when they're young, and then because they can't do it exactly the way that they always did, they just don't
Right.
want to make that shift. So
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You absolutely can. I will tell people unequivocally, yeah, I'm not as strong as I once was. Like I can't hit the same maximum numbers that I did when I was in my mid 20s,
mhm.
late 20s. I'm actually pretty close, believe it or not. But I can do things now that I couldn't do back then,
Yeah.
right? So I can do I almost hit you'll get a kick out of this. I almost hit a back lever the other day. I was right about there. I had my daughter who's a gymnast, by the way, so she knows what
Mm.
it looks like, right? I was right about there on a back lever. Never done that before. So I can do pistols, single leg rock bottom squats, and one arm, one leg push-ups at my advanced age of my early 50s that I could not do in my 20s or 30s. So you can get plenty strong as you get old. You just have to know how to program correctly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. To everything, there is a season. And folks, the season now is the season to follow Geoff Neupert. I almost butchered your name, and I'm not going to
Oh,
edit it either. Sorry about that.
that's
Anyway,
fine.
chasingstrength.com, Geoff Neupert, GeoffNeupert on YouTube. And by the way, having a funny spelled name is the exact reason why I use 9minutechallenge.com because it just redirects to alexsalkin.com. But I mean, everybody misspells my name in one way or the other. My accountant misspelled it on something the other day, and I had to like bring it to her
Nice.
attention. Yeah.
It's
So
a good idea. I'm gonna go buy all those old. No, I'm not gonna tell anybody what I'm gonna do. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Geoff Newport,
That's
Newport.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Jeff, all those good ones. Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. Very clever. Very clever. Well, Geoff, thank you very much for coming on the show.
My pleasure as always, Alex. Thanks for having me. Hope your listeners found it mildly entertaining and somewhat helpful.
Well, I found it wildly entertaining, and if they didn't, they are wrong. So, folks, keep that in mind. If you did not
That's
find it
right.
wildly entertaining, re-listen to it. You'll come around.
Yeah, that's right. Eventually.
Exactly. Have fun and happy training.